The NFL playoffs are here, and this is what every player strives for when they arrive at training camp during the summer. The opportunity to make the playoffs, and ultimately, the opportunity to win a Super Bowl. And in the NFL, anything can happen at any given time. There are narratives around players in this year's playoffs, both good and bad, and during the playoffs, players can change those narratives with good or bad performance. In today's video, we are going to discuss 4 players that need to step up and have the most to prove in the tournament. There can only be one champion, and every team at one point in time this year has had problems. And there is one thing that fixes everything, and that's winning. And there is a lot to break down in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And the first player we are going to discuss in today's video is 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy. As we all know, Brock was the very last pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, earning him this year's Mr. Irrelevant. When Jimmy G went down with an injury in Week 13 against the Dolphins, a lot of people initially thought, great, we have a 7th round rookie quarterback here, and we'll try again next year. Well, everyone except the 49ers roster and Brock Purdy, that is. And since he became the 49ers quarterback, he has been on fire and has over 1,300 yards passing in 6 games, along with 13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. What is particularly impressive for Purdy is if you translate that to a 17-game season, he would be on pace for 3,700 yards, 37 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. And I don't think there is an NFL team that would deny that type of production from any quarterback, let alone Mr. Irrelevant. But for as good of a story as Purdy has been so far, and for as fun as he has been to watch, he still has to prove it in the postseason, because if he doesn't and lays an egg against the Seattle Seahawks in the first round and the 49ers lose the game, well, then we're back to square one. It would be regular season Purdy, or the lights were too big for him, and the whole 9. And full disclosure, I do expect the 49ers to win in the wild card round over the Seahawks, as long as they do not turn the ball over. But there's a legitimate chance Purdy wins against the Seahawks, then hosts a team perhaps like the Minnesota Vikings in the second round of the playoffs, which I think the 49ers would win, and then go to the NFC Championship game with a rookie quarterback. This is all very realistic, and we've seen head coach Kyle Shanahan have the training wheels on for Jimmy G in the playoffs before, as back in 2019 in the divisional round and NFC Championship games, Jimmy threw a combined 27 passes in 2 games and only threw 8 when the 49ers steamrolled the Packers in the NFC Championship. But if Brock Purdy has himself a day, or even 2 in the playoffs, then there could be a quarterback controversy this summer between him and Trey Lance. And the 49ers gave up 3 first-round picks for Lance and spent a 7th-round pick on Purdy. So in a lot of ways for Brock, he needs to perform not only to help the team win, of course, but for his future as an NFL starter. And I don't think he's going to have a problem finding a starting job anywhere else, especially after the back half of the rookie season he's had, but I do think Brock would rather start in San Francisco than just about anywhere. And with how dominant the 49ers defense is, it's not unrealistic to think they could appear and potentially win a Super Bowl. And if they won a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, I don't think there's any chance they could roll with Trey Lance as the starter in 2023. So because of this, Purdy has a lot to prove in the 2022 playoffs. Next up is Patrick Mahomes, as he needs to prove he's not a fraud, and kidding of course, but in all seriousness, it is Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys' 2022 season has been a lot like a roller coaster, as there have been some serious highs, like beating the Cincinnati Bengals back in Week 2 with Cooper Rush, and not just beating the Minnesota Vikings, but humiliating them on their home turf with a score of 40-3. There have also been some serious lows, like the first game of the year in a 19-3 loss to the Bucs, and in Week 18 with a 26-6 loss to the Washington Commanders. And Dak has not been hot recently, and that would be an understatement. Dak has thrown an interception in each of his last 7 games dating back to Thanksgiving, and in his most recent game, he looked bad. The Week 18 game against the Commanders was awful, as he was late on reads, he was making poor decisions, and finished the game just 14 of 37 for 128 yards and a touchdown and a pick six. The Dak haters were having a field day, and Dak was just 1 of 7 under pressure for 6 yards in this game. And in their second most recent loss, which was to the Jags back in Week 15, Dak threw 2 interceptions, including a pick six, and in the game was just 5 of 10 for 51 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks while under pressure. And in a road playoff game against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, Dak needs to step up. Before getting injured back in Week 1 against this same team, he was 14 of 29 for 134 yards and an interception, and the Cowboys lost 19-3. We've heard it all with Dak over the years, from he is the guy, he is not the guy, and everything in between. Prescott has a lifetime 1-3 record in the postseason, and owner Jerry Jones wants another Super Bowl in the worst way. And I don't think the Cowboys are going to run the table this year as a wildcard team, but falling to 1-4 lifetime in the postseason, Dak that is, with the Eagles in the NFC East would be unsettling. Knowing how they are set up for a future of success, and how they have a young quarterback along with an insane defense and multiple first-round picks this year, and will only get better from this year to next. Dak needs to have a good game, or even 2 good games, to put the Cowboys' nerves at ease. There's a ton of pressure on Dak to perform in the playoffs because of all of the noise surrounding him and the team they enter on Monday night against the GOAT. There's a lot of restlessness with Dak given he played in 11 games in 2022, yet set a career high in interceptions with 15. And I think the Cowboys are in a very tricky situation if they lay an egg against the Bucs in the first round, because what do you do moving forward? And that conversation can be prevented by Dak Prescott, and he has a lot of pressure on him in the next few weeks. From Dak to Trevor Lawrence we go, and this one is pretty easy. Trevor had about as nightmare-filled of a rookie season as you're ever going to find, as pretty much anything that could have went wrong. And his second season with the Jags was a million times better, just because Urban Meyer wasn't there and he had a competent head coach. But we've known about Trevor Lawrence for several years now, and all this time, all we've heard is how he is the next guy up and how he will save a franchise. And there were some serious strides in 2022 as he went from 12 touchdowns to 25 in a year, and he cut his interceptions from 17 to 8. The Jags also went from back-to-back number 1 overall picks to division champions. And throughout the final 6 or so weeks of the regular season, we've started to see Trevor creep up in quarterback rankings, and some people are putting him in their top 10 and are preaching how he turned the corner. But there is one thing that's concerning and could be on full display this postseason. Trevor Lawrence, when kept clean in 2022, threw for over 3,200 yards, 21 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions. But when he was under pressure, it was a much different story. He threw just 4 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, completed just 49.7% of his passes, and had a 62.7 passer rating. The 62.7 passer rating under pressure ranked 23rd in the NFL, behind guys like Marcus Mariota, Russell Wilson, and Derek Carr. And this is something Trevor has to get better at if the Jags are going to compete. Because if we have access to this and how he struggles at pressure at times, well, NFL teams certainly do, and Lawrence under pressure is a lot different of a quarterback than he is when kept clean. And to be fair, that's the same with every quarterback. Some are just better at dealing with pressure, and the numbers show that. Trevor's touchdown to interception ratio of 4-5 under pressure does not compare well to other AFC quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, and you may be thinking or asking, why does that matter? And it matters because that's who the Jags have to be better than. Maybe not this year, but they will be at some point. If Trevor is ever to deliver this franchise a Super Bowl, these types of things matter. This, as in Trevor Lawrence's first NFL playoff game, has been building for several years now. And how will he play when it matters most? We're going to find out soon, and Trevor has a lot of pressure on him in the 2022 postseason. From sunny Jacksonville to the north we go to discuss Kirk Cousins. With Kirk, this one is simple. 13-4 and division champs, 11-0 in one-score games. But all 4 losses this year have been by double digits, and 3 of the 4 were very, very ugly losses. If there is one game everyone will be watching in the wildcard round of the playoffs, it will be the Giants and Vikings to either confirm the Vikings are frauds, as some people would say, or if they can get the second playoff win in the Kirk Cousins era. And whatever the result of this game will be, and if there are ensuing games, the narrative will revolve around Kirk Cousins either winning the Vikings a playoff game or him not doing enough. And because of how bad the Vikings defense was throughout the 2022 regular season, I worry if they turn the ball over early and go 3-and-out, they can quickly find themselves down 10 or more points, and the playoffs, as we know, are not the same as the regular season. No opponent is going to be the Jeff Saturday-led Colts, and I do realize the Vikings came back from down 17 points in Buffalo earlier in the year, but the playoffs are a different animal, and there is a chance Kirk and the Vikings go to either San Francisco or Philadelphia at some point in January, and I worry about Kirk in either of those games. Hell, I worry about Kirk in the wildcard round against Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, and Dexter Lawrence. Not to mention how many times Wink Martindale is going to send blitzes to try and make Kirk consistently uncomfortable. And fair or not, and Vikings fans would certainly argue this is unfair, but to the media, the success of the team comes down to how Kirk Cousins plays. It doesn't matter to them that Kirk Cousins finished tied for 5th in the NFL in passing touchdowns this year behind only the big 3 in Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow, and Geno Smith of the Seahawks, who could also have a place in today's video. What matters is that back in Week 2 against the Eagles, Kirk threw 3 interceptions, including 2 to Darius Slay, and that in Week 17 in Lambeau, Kirk threw 3 interceptions in what was a 24-point loss, and the fact neither of those games were at 1 o'clock. And the Vikings' first playoff game is at 4:25, which of course leads people to believe Kirk will play like shit with the season on the line, completely disregarding in the opener against the Packers in a game that was also at 4:25, he threw for 277 yards and 2 touchdowns. With Kirk, the only way to change this narrative is to win. And if the Vikings lose at some point in the playoffs, which is to be expected given where they would be in line to play, he cannot crumble on the road in the playoffs, because the media will be like a dog with a burger hanging in front of their mouths. And how will Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings play in January? That's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.